Well, thank you guys. That was really kind. Thank you. Good to see. Kind of see you guys through the light here. It's Super Bowl Sunday. Are you guys fans of the Super Bowl? I know it seems like there's a lot of folks that just don't really care. But it is Valentine's Day weekend. You guys excited about that? No, but you guys don't. Do you care about anything at all? Like all this stuff happening, you guys are like, it's just it's just another day. Well, it is also. We are midway through Black History Month, and I think that's important. I've had like a complicated relationship with Black History Month, if I'm being honest. I grew up around mostly white people, and my mom wasn't really big on Black history, and so I didn't learn a lot of Black history growing up. So I went to these private Christian schools, and it never came up. We might have heard about Dr. King, of course. I mean, everybody's heard of Dr. King, Booker T. Washington, and so it's actually funny because now that I do a podcast and I talk about anti-racism, and I am also a DEI consultant. Like I wind up sometimes trying to draw names when I'm talking about Black history, and I wind up going through the same names that everybody knows. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very DEI to just name MLK and Booker T. Washington. Everybody knows them. So I'd say all that to say to you that it is important as followers of Jesus, or maybe you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus. Maybe you're watching online, you're not a follower of Jesus. But as a human being, if you're in this room or you're watching online, there's something about you that is concerned with morality, concerned with being a decent human being. And part of being a decent human being is recognizing when there's been harm done to individuals or harm done to people, that we pause and do what we can to rectify that harm. And Black History Month is an attempt at doing that. And so here's one way that every one of you who's listening, watching later, can participate in this month and participate in making right the wrongs. You can educate yourselves. You can take some time this month to learn about someone from Black history who you hadn't known about before. Maybe someone like an Ella Baker, or some Black women from history. See, I'm not going to go through the list again and embarrass myself in front of everybody. But you can do your work to learn. And if you have influence over children as a parent or teacher, or you've got a platform like I guess all of us do with social media, or people who listen to us, those who will listen, share it. Share what you learned, share what you heard, pass it forward. I think that's a way we can all contribute, right? Can we all do that? Can we care about that? You don't care about Valentine's Day or the Super Bowl, we can care about that, right? So, one quick story I was going to tell here, just on the Black history thing. One more thing I want to say. A friend of mine, I won't say who it is or where they live, other than that they live in California. This is a Black friend of mine. His son is 10 years old. Goes to a school here in California, and in his music class, asked the teacher if, because it's Black History Month, they could learn about some Black composers. And the teacher said, I don't care what month it is, we'll get to those composers when we get to them. This is why it matters that we pause and think about Black history, because there's a 10-year-old kid who just already had to muster the courage to go up to the teacher and say anything. When I was 10 years old, I didn't say hardly anything to teachers. I was scared of them, as all of us were, because they're scary. If you're a teacher in the room, I'm not saying you're scary, but maybe to a 10-year-old you are. I don't know. But it's a scary thing to go up to a teacher and then have a teacher be like, nah, that's not important. And I say that to you guys because, again, there is someone who you'll have an interaction with, and you'll have the opportunity to create a moment that is special and life-giving and beautiful, or a moment that really sucks. And when you interact this month or any month with Black folks, and you're not Black, you have an opportunity to make that moment really special or really crappy. Can I say crap in here, by the way? I said it twice, so I guess I can. So we're in the middle of this series, Stronger. Did I get it right? That was called Stronger. And Travis is always so gracious to me and will email and ask if I'll speak. And I'm always like, so I haven't said the thing yet that is going to get me uninvited. So I'm always like really humbled because I have, and Travis knows this, I have had a complicated relationship with Christianity over the last several years, as I think a lot of us have. It's like it's a complicated thing to be a part of. It's a complicated tradition to hold to in the midst of all that's going on and some of the stuff I don't have to name, that you know what has happened, you know what you've seen. And so when Travis asked me to speak, I'm always like, man, I mean, I want to because I think this church is doing the work, right? I think this church is a church where you can be honest, a church where you can say the things, where you can be vulnerable, where you can put things out there they're tough to digest and people are mature enough to go, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'll sit with it. So Travis asked me if I'd speak on passion. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. That's easy. It's kind of like the way I approached this was the way I approached doing Instacart not too long ago, right? I started Instacarting, and I went live on Instacart. And I'm like, how hard could this be? I go shopping for my wife all the time, and if I can't find things, I just text her, and she tells me what aisle it's in, and if it's not there, I ask someone who works there. No big deal. I go to Target almost every day and do this. All right? So I'm like, this will be no thing. So I go live, and it sends me to a town over from where I live, and sends me to a market. I think it's going to be even easier. It's just a market, right? I can go to a market and find a couple of things, some milk, butter, and sugar, and get out of there, and I'll be fine. Well, I go into this market, and it's an Asian market. And I walk in there, and I'm like, everything on the list I have never heard of. I don't eat it. I've never seen it. And no one in the room that is in the grocery store speaks English. So I'm like talking to all these people, and they just point in different directions. I spent an hour and a half in this grocery store trying to find things that looked amazing. They looked like they'd be really good to eat. In fact, I might go back and pick up some stuff for myself. But I was like, I don't know where any of this stuff is. And this is how I felt today when I started thinking about passion. It seemed easy at first to be like, yeah, duh, I know about passion. But then when I started thinking about it, and when I started looking at what the Bible has to say about passion, I was like, I felt like I was standing in a grocery store on my own, searching for answers, trying to find things that would make sense to me. But even more so, I got to try to make sense to you. So we'll see. People often say, Corey, I'm looking forward to hearing you speak, hearing what you're going to say. And I say, yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, because we'll find out together what I'm going to say. So what I figured I'd do is answer some questions, right? The questions that actually Travis sent. And I said, the easiest way to do this is to speak to these questions. And the first question was, what does it mean to be a person of passion? I was golfing one day. Every time I come here, I tell a golf story. I was golfing one day, and I was golfing badly, which happens a lot for me. And I was there were these two kids in front of me. They were younger kids. There were two kids in front of me. There were two white guys in front of them, and these were two Asian kids that were playing in front of me. And I was on a hole behind them, and they hit a ball that went near these two white guys, and these two white guys turned and started yelling at them. And I, lost it. I'm on a golf course. You're not even supposed to really talk loud on a golf course. I yelled 2 fairways over at these men for yelling at these kids, and I won't tell you what I yelled because I don't even know if I can say crap in here. I definitely can't tell you what I said to these folks on this golf course that day. And there's this other time I'm at home and I'm sitting in my front room and I was doing some work and I look out the window and there's a UPS guy, it's an older black man who parks his UPS truck in front of my house and is kind of blocking the sort of, but not really, kind of blocking the turning lane. And this older white guy drives by the UPS truck and he stops and he starts yelling at this older man. And folks, I don't even know how I wound up on my front porch from the front room. I was sitting down. I couldn't tell you if I put my shoes on. I couldn't tell you anything, but I find myself on the front porch yelling. And as I was thinking about what passion is, I'm like, yeah, that's passion, right? That is literally the word passion means fire in one of the meanings. It's like this thing that you almost can't even control. It shows up, and before you know it, you're standing face to face with something, or you're engaged in something, or you're moved towards something. That's an idea of passion. And as I start thinking about passion, I'm like, is that what it is? Like it's that thing that like drives you, that you can't control, that you can't like do anything about. Then I start looking at what Scripture says about passion, and I Googled it, and everything the Scripture said about passion was like, almost like, don't do it. It was like one of the scriptures I came across was where Paul wrote, and he said it's better to marry than to burn with passion, which, to be honest, is a lot of the reason why a lot of Christians get married so young, because they're like, well, it's better to marry. We're burning with passion right now for each other. My wife and I, before we got married, burned with passion for each other all the time. So we got married so that we would no longer burn with passion all the time, because, I mean, you know, I guess the average marriage, they say you burned with passion, what, once a week or so? It's Valentine's Day, folks. I mean, you have to make some passion jokes if you're going to talk on Valentine's Day. But you kind of watch, you may have some friends who like burn with passion. And like they are people who will go with whims. Do any of you have friends who are like, they're in relationships all the time? Like you see the people that are on Instagram and they're just in love. Like, I mean, they met this person 2 days ago and they're in love. And every post that you see is a story of them together. They're taking selfies together. They're kissy facing and all of these things. And 2 weeks later, they're posting by themselves and they're lonely and they're heartbroken and they're subtweeting to the person that they're no longer with. Stuff like you never know a good thing until you lose it. And then 2 weeks later, they're passionately in love with someone else. I mean, we've all seen that. We all know that. Is that passion? Is that what it means to live a life of passion? To live a life where you're just kind of like following your every whim? I mean, I don't know how many of you follow it. I haven't followed it very closely, but I thought it was amusing. My daughter and wife were telling me yesterday about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's very public feud they're having in front of everyone. And we see that, like, through some of these relationships that we see, their passion leads them together and their passion leads them away from each other. And you hear people saying things like, we just fell out of love with each other. Or I just decided I loved this person more. There was more passion over here than there was here. Is that what it means to be a person who lives a life of passion? You know, one of the words for passion that I came across, like one of the definitions for the word passion, is this word suffering. In fact, like the movie The Passion of the Christ, which I heard there was a sequel coming out, which doesn't really make any sense to me. But the Passion of the Christ, the Passion of Jesus is the last week of Jesus' life, which we know the last week of Jesus' life was about crucifixion. I don't know if it's serious or not. I did hear that there's a Passion of the Christ too, but I just thought I'd throw it out there to be funny. I don't like always plan the jokes, you know. They just come to me and then I just say them. I mean, there's some stuff I said earlier that I thought was going to slay, and y'all didn't laugh at it, so I just kind of run with whatever comes to mind. I told you, we're going to find out together what I'm going to say. But like this idea of suffering is a part of what passion is, which is odd to think about. Which I think would lead to the next question, which Travis asked, which is, why is it that so many people live passionless lives? Like, why is it that, like, so many people live in such a way that seems like there is no fire? Like this word passion has this fire attached to it. In fact, like there's some like, what am I trying to say? That, you know, how you trace a word back. You guys know what I'm saying. Like there's a word for that, a term for it. The see? All these people in the Bay Area work in tech and y'all act like you don't know what etymology is. Okay, so the etymology of the word is like it goes back to like a boiling of water. Like where it just water just boils over, and it's kind of like I used to have one in the house. I don't have one anymore, but a tea kettle. Anybody still have a tea kettle, by the way? Show of hands. There's one person, two people have tea. Three people have. Do you guys make tea with the tea kettle? Anybody? No? Kind of? Is that a British thing where you make tea, a cup of tea? You call it a cuppa too, don't you? See there? I've never even been there, and I knew that it was a cuppa. But like anyway, that like the tea kettle, it like at a certain point, it can't help but open, right? That there is this fire. Why are there so many people who live without any fire? I'm not talking about why are there so many people who don't live, in love with somebody and then not in love with somebody following whims. I'm talking about whims. I think whims are different than passion. I'm talking about like this thing in you that is like undeniable, this hill I'm willing to die on. Why do so many people live without a hill that they're willing to die on? And that term, I'm sure you've heard before. When I worked at a church, I won't name the church. If you're watching online and you know the church because you know who I am, then you know I'm talking about you. I was working at this church, and they would say when it came to issues of race that it allude to it not being a hill they wanted to die on. Like everybody has a hill that they're, quote unquote, willing to die on. And I feel like in the United States, for a lot of Christians, and some of the reasons why I have complications with Christianity is because of that very thing, that it seems like the hills that Christians are willing to die on are few and far between when it comes to the actual material circumstances of people's lives. When it comes to things that actually affect human beings in their everyday lives, because oftentimes these things are polarizing, Christians are unwilling to have a hill to die on. When literally the word passion in the Passion Week of Jesus is about him literally dying on a hill. So if we're going to be a follower of Jesus, the literal meaning of following Jesus would be willing to die on a hill. But yet so many of us find ourselves opting out of passion because passion is costly. I once heard Dr. John Perkins say that we have benefited too much from injustice to do anything about it. Like one of the best ways to like quell, is that the right word for that? Quell? What does quell mean? Quell means to stop something, right? Is that what that means? I want to make sure I'm using the right words because I know you guys are like super smart. I know you are. One of the best ways to quell a rebellion is to reward people as part of the rebellion for, just to give them a reward for, incentivize them to no longer rebel. This is kind of the world that Jesus lived in, where the tax collectors and the Pharisees and all of these characters that show up in the Bible stories that we've read growing up, for those of us that grew up in church and those of us that are in church now that hear these Bible stories, these characters are people who have benefited from no longer resisting what Rome was doing to the Jewish people. So it wasn't powerful people, emperors, that aren't just all-out raging narcissists, know that the best way to keep people bound, to keep people living in ways that are less than passionate, is to just incentivize them to be apathetic. Give them incentive, give them benefit, give them land, give them money, give them resource, give them enough stuff that they get so attached to it that they no longer really care about the injustices that they may suffer, let alone what somebody else might suffer. And I found this quote on passion that I thought was pretty cool. And if you guys put the quote up, and the next question after this, but I think there is a quote. Is it behind me? No, it's not behind me. I don't have the note in front of me to read it. So if you could, is it going to show up right there? It's going to show up behind me. Oh, it's behind me. Okay, we'll read it together. A burning passion with absolute detachment is the key to all success. Mahatma Gandhi said that. And I saw this quote and was like, when Travis talks about I would say some things that you'll be thinking about later. I do hope that that's the case, because I think that the Bible describes the kingdom of God as a seed for a reason. It should be something that you receive and it grows over time because you meditate on it. It should not be something that you can consume in a tweet. You shouldn't be able to digest this entire talk from one clip that we put on Instagram. So when I saw this quote, you can leave it up there. I thought some words in it were interesting, like detachment and success, because they don't really belong together, do they? It doesn't seem to me that you could be very successful by being detached. Like, you would have to be really, like, from what I understand about successful people is there's an obsession. There was an obsession to the great late Kobe Bryant. There was an obsession to Michael Jordan, an obsession to Steve Jobs. They were obsessed with something. They weren't detached from it. They were obsessed with it. And we would call that in our capitalist American society passion. That regardless of what it costs you, if it costs you your marriage, your children, your family, your sanity, just keep producing this thing out of your obsession. Gandhi says, detachment is the key to all success. And this is why I think this idea that I just put forward about emperors and empires incentivizing our apathy. Because if I can get you to be so attached to the way things are, to the status quo, to how things operate, regardless of the collateral damage, then you'll never put energy forward to change it. You'll remain passionless. Because you'll have this, like, you could even have a fire. You could even drive past homeless encampments and feel terrible. But you like that you're so attached to the way of life that you have that it's like, well, I got to get to work. I got to get to this. I got to do this other thing. And we're all in it. And I'm not here today like condemning you or saying you're terrible people because you're not late to work to help those who don't have a home to live in. That's not what I'm communicating to you. And in fact, no one who's ever communicating to you, because we're all human beings, should be laying guilt and shame on you. Like, we're human beings. Can I just say this for a second? We are human beings on a massive rock that is hurling through space at some ungodly amount of speed. Like, no wonder half of us have these mental breakdowns. It's insane to think about like what we're actually dealing, what we're living in. The fact that like we call it sunrise and sunset, the sun never goes anywhere. And we orient our lives around like the time, like our concept of time. We say it's 12 o'clock because we're positioned somewhere in space near the sun at a certain time on an axis that we don't even feel. Like, it's all madness. So when we start talking about like religion and Christianity and faith and God, all of these things are complicated. Like, it's not straightforward and simple. It's not like as easy as we've made it. So I say all that to say, I want to give us all some grace. And as I'm saying things that come across strong and may hit you and be like, oh man, I need to be better, recognize that you're a human being and we all need to be better. Regardless of whether I have a microphone and you don't, we're all here present together, living and learning and growing and being in the Spirit together and hoping that all of this is going somewhere good. So we have these things in us, these urges in us that go, I don't think that thing is just, but I got to get to work. I got to get to t-ball. I got to get to volleyball. I got to get to the golf course because I'm going to take all the Ray's money. I have to. That was for Ray, because I think I heard Ray in the building, by the way. And I will take all of Ray's money. Okay, Corey, stay focused. My God. I mean, this is how you guys can tell I'm getting comfortable with you, because when I just start like just saying words, then you just know I'm really comfortable and I feel like we're family, because this is what I do with my family. I just say stuff and then they're like, can you get to the point? And I'm like, okay, fine. That there is this thing that may burn in you. And what I think passion is, and why I think so many people live without it, is knowing how to and being willing to go to a hill and die on it. I said a couple weeks ago that the truth will set you free, but the truth will also cost you friends and family and resources and reputation and opportunity. And for that reason, truth, passion, being passionate about something you truly deeply believe in, and being willing to speak up on it, being willing to talk about it, being willing to lean into it, being willing to live into it, is oftentimes costly. Because the status quo is so much easier. There's so many rewards associated with the status quo, and with just going, hey, I'm just going to mind my own business, do my own thing, and not worry about any of the things that I see around me that are unjust. Any of the things that I see that would cause me to feel passion. Because passion is oftentimes one of the ways that you can know. The next question is, I think the next question is, how do I know, how do I discover my passion? What makes you mad? I mean, not just like, dishes in the sink or, dirty laundry. I mean, any of those things that like make me mad or my wife mad if I leave dishes in the sink. I should say when I leave dishes in the sink, because I always do, and I'm trying to get better at it. So, babe, if you're watching in front of all of these witnesses, I am trying my best to be better at it, okay? My wife's passion might be clean sinks. I don't know. And I should help her with that more than I do. But what makes you angry? What is it that you see that you just like there was something, even though the way I handled two of the situations that I described to you, I don't necessarily love it in hindsight. I mean, a part of me feels cool that I yelled at some strangers for being mean to some kids. But I don't know that that was the best way to handle it. But there was something inside me that just said, this is not okay and something has to be done. Like, you shouldn't be behaving this way towards these people. Do you have that thing in you, like when you see it, that you just go, this isn't right, and I'm agitated by it? There's something about passion that has like an agitation to it. It's like it's under your skin, and I just, like, I feel this fire, as Jeremiah said in the book of Jeremiah, shut up in my bones, this thing in me that's just like, oh, I gotta move. This is what brought Travis and Jenna and the team that came with them from Arizona, where the cost of living is like half of what it cost to rent like a corner of a room in San Francisco, to come here and say, there's something in me that I can't deny. I have to go do that. I have to go be there. I have to go be in the city. Do you have that thing? If you can recognize that thing in you, if you can ask yourself that question, what is it? What rubs me the wrong way? That's one of the easiest ways to discover what your passion is. I shouldn't even say discover. For most of you in this room, as I'm looking around, it doesn't look like most of us. I mean, you got masks on, which we get to take off on Tuesday, I hear. Some of you are all happy about it. Some of you are like forever maskers, which is okay. It's totally fine. That forever maskers joke, I hadn't even thought about that. So if you are, I swear to you, I'm not like trying to be like, I'm not up here trying to be Joe Rogan. God, I've just been saying stuff today. What was I even talking about? Discovering, thank you. For many of you, it's rediscovering passion. Because sometimes what happens to us, and this happened to me, and I tried not to do it to our daughters as they were getting ready to go off to black colleges, was not to tell people to abandon something they're passionate about because it's not practical. Because this is the incentive the status quo empire and emperors give you is you have got to make $1 to live. And passion oftentimes doesn't make you $1. It may cost you $1. And because we love our children, we love our nephews, we love our cousins, we love the people around us, we will oftentimes want to admonish people to go, are you sure that, like, you want to move to a different country and help, like, them get clean water? And there's no money in that. And, like, you don't even know that country. You've never been there. I heard it's hot there. You know, like, it's violent over there. Are you sure you want to do that? Travis, are you sure you want to go to San Francisco? I've heard it like 95% of that area, people don't even go to church. You know that, right? Like, you're going to San Francisco. Like, they never even really have a summer there. It's like always cold-ish. Do you really want to go there? Like, it's really expensive. You can't even get a seat at a Warriors game for less than like $300. Like, people, well-meaning, will talk you out of passion because it's just easier to just put your head down, do what everyone else is doing. I get this all the time. People telling me I shouldn't say that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. Are you sure you want to? I mean, people are going to get upset if you... And I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of like, if it's true and if it's really helping people, like, damn it, it's worth it. Like, I can't not do it. It's what Dr. King, why he, in his last words said, I may not get there with you, but we as a people are going to the promised land. I can't not go to Selma. I can't not cross this bridge. I know it's on the other side of this bridge. I know there are dogs. I know there are billy clubs. I know there's water hoses. It's like what Paul said when he wrote and he talked about, I don't know what awaits me. I don't know what town it was. But he said, I don't know what awaits me, but the Holy Spirit, this is one of the wildest verses in Scripture. The Holy Spirit assures me that I'm going to get there and I'm going to suffer many things. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be beaten. But Paul went anyway. Dr. King walked across that bridge, and so did so many other people, many of which were even white clergy, walked across that bridge anyway. Because they had something deeper than the passion that makes you leave this partner for another one this week. And something different than the apathy that makes you say, well, maybe over time these things will change on their own. But somewhere between those two, something that was steadfast and steady, that said, I'm going anyway. It's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, it's going to cost me, but I'm doing it anyway. And that's what it means to live a life of passion, is that I'm going to do it anyway. You know, there's this story in the Bible where Jesus is he's going to this celebration where all Jewish men were supposed to go. Jesus kind of shows up a little bit late. It's at the temple, and at the temple, the temple in those days was open to everyone. It was a Jewish temple, but it was open for everyone to come there who wanted to worship the Jewish God. And what it started happening, because it was a long journey, and you were supposed to bring like something to sacrifice to God when you got to the temple. What started happening is that someone had the idea, well, to make it easier for people, we'll just like have some stuff to sell here at the temple. Like, well, if you need a goat or a chicken or something, we'll sell it to you for $8.99. You can buy two for $17 if you want. And they're changing money. And what happened is, as is the case, whenever there's like how do I want to say this in a way that like makes sense and doesn't have someone boo me and throw tomatoes. When you're like living in a capitalist type of situation, exploitation tends to follow it for whatever reason. I'm not saying that that's all that follows it, but there tends to be an exploitation that follows. And what happened here was the people began to exploit the opportunity to help people make sacrifices to God, and were getting rich off of it. Jesus shows up in the temple, and he's like, I'm not having it. And he starts flipping tables over. And I'm sure you guys have heard this story if you've been around church for a while. Jesus crafted a whip and started whipping the money changers out of the temple, which is wild to think about, Jesus crafting a whip and hitting people. You teach people not to hit. I teach my kids not to hit all the time. That's why we've never told them this story. I'm going to school hitting people, saying, well, Jesus did it. I teach my kids like they're kids. My kids are grown. They teach me stuff when I get to talk to them. But and what's interesting is after this happens, it's in Matthew. After this happens, Jesus' disciples, I think Matthew writes that they remember the verse. It said, "The zeal for your house has consumed me," which we would perhaps translate to passion, but I think it's better to leave it as zeal. That the zeal for justice, it wasn't just for the temple. It was a zeal for people being exploited, for people who should know better, making it harder for people to get access to God, to the source of life. Anytime people are denied access to what they need, we who have some sense of morality should be really, really pissed about that. It should like really upset you to see that, to imagine that people would be denied the right to vote, or that people would make it harder for marginalized people to vote. I don't care who you vote for or what your political affiliation is. It should bother you for people to have their rights infringed upon. If we are going to be followers of Jesus especially. I'm not telling you to craft a whip, hit anybody, but I mean, gosh, could you like craft an email and send it to somebody? Could you go up to the school and talk with the principal if you hear about a racist incident that happened, or a bullying incident that happened, or any sort of incident that happened that your kids came home and made you aware of if you're a parent? Could you do that? So I'm not asking here today that like all of you quit your jobs and run around and just be passionate, because then it would just be, I don't know what would happen. Maybe I should ask you to do that and see, just to see what happens. It might be fun to see. All of you sitting in 2-week notice, and you're like, you know what, I was listening to this guy talk, and he said I should be passionate, so I am committing my life to being barefoot and like just walking the country and helping people. Oh my gosh, are we doing this? Anyway, I'm sorry. But I am asking you to find a way. Like find a way to let your passion, let that fire that burns in you, that wants to resist things that are happening in the world that you're not okay with. I am asking you to find a way to use that. Because you know what, like ultimately, I think if I could like speak for God, which I think is always a little dangerous, but if I could just speak for God, I think ultimately what I think the Spirit of God has been communicating since people started writing about God and interacting with God is the word compassion. It's that like, that fire that you have, that thing that gets under your skin, is not about making you look good or making you money even. This is what a society built on competition does, is that it takes virtuous things like passion and makes them about you. Rewarding you. Get a passion so that you can be rewarded. Lose sleep, like, go to bed late, wake up early so you can be rewarded for it. But I think the kind of passion that we're talking about today, and again, if I might be so bold as to speak for God, that just from what I understand of all of the folks who wrote about their experiences and their understanding of what it meant to be godly, was that something should drive me to want to help someone else. The Good Samaritan story has this in it, that I should be driven to help someone else, regardless of who they are, why they're there. You know, it's interesting about the Good Samaritan is that, the irony is that no Jewish person thought any Samaritan was good, so calling a Good Samaritan is what's amazing. That title alone is amazing if you understand it. But like the fact that many of us might ask before we help, why is this person in a ditch? What did they do to get there? They might deserve to be there. You shouldn't have went down that road. But there's no questions asked by the Samaritan of what happened. Why are you here? You're there, you need help, so I'll help you. That is passion. It doesn't have to look like someone yelling or with a street preacher, if you will. It doesn't have to look like that. It can look like a simple act of compassion that just says, here's me doing what I can do. Recognizing there's a lot more I could do and maybe even should do, but here's me doing what I can do. It's doing our best. Can you commit to that? Can you commit to like doing your best when it comes to becoming a person who lives with passion, like that you maybe take some time to think about what are some things that you gave. I'm not talking about just dreams, but what are some things that maybe you gave up on? Maybe some things that you were passionate about when you were younger. You wanted to do this thing, and when I get there, I'm going to do this, and you stopped doing it. Did you? And some things maybe you stopped doing because you got older and you realized that was stupid. I should never have done that anyway. That was a terrible idea. I'm never going to climb Mount Everest. I don't even like outdoors like that. That's fine. Maybe there's something you abandoned like that, but I mean, if there's something that you abandoned just because it wasn't practical, maybe, just maybe, today is just about you revisiting that thing. Maybe that's the whole reason I drove all the way over here. Was for somebody in this room to revisit. Just revisit it. You may revisit it and find, I'm still don't feel like that's for me. That's fine, but revisit some things and maybe there's a passion that's lost that could change the whole world. Literally. All right, I want to pray for us, and then I don't know what happens next, but something will happen, and you'll know when it happens. All right? Close your eyes with me. God, thank you for...